Hello everyone, welcome to our GYP Intercultural Seminar. Today, students and youth around the world are coming together to share their personal experiences and perspectives on race and culture, how it shapes identity, daily life, and treatment from society. This is a space for respectful listening, honest dialogue, and learning from one another. If you are interested, please feel free to contact us through the website or email to learn more about GYP and our activities. Let's begin.
I'm Teresa Fu. I'm from Illinois, the Chicago suburban area, and I'm a rising junior. And I'm very excited to be here.
I'm from Boston, and I'm a rising sophomore.
I'm Caroline. I'm from Boston, and I'm also a rising sophomore.
My name is Shandu, and I live in Boston. I'm also a rising sophomore.
And Dar.
Hi, I'm Dar. I'm a rising senior, and I live in Boston.
So yeah, our first question is, how has your background contributed or influenced your lifestyle growing up?
My background kind of separated me from a lot of white peers that are Christian and stuff since I was born in Iran. And it kind of set a wall between me and them. And neither of us understood each other. I didn't understand Christianity, they didn't understand Islam, and it was kind of just a weird balance of not knowing what the other believes in.
Yeah, I totally get that. I grew up, and this kind of branches off into another question later on, but living in an area that is there's a very heavily prominent racial group or religious group, it can definitely feel separating. And I know you were talking about how there was that bridge and gap, and I know other people might have felt it. So how would you say you overcame it, or how is some of the other guys sort of overcame that bridge?
We never really overcame it, but we kind of just accepted the fact that the other existed and move on with our lives.
Do you think has either group sort of learned about it to sort of make the situation less divisive in a sense?
Maybe. Most of the people I knew back in Christian school kind of we dropped off. I don't talk to them anymore, so maybe, I'm not sure.
Sure. So I think my background, it was kind of interesting because I feel like I had to balance being Chinese and being American a lot. And sometimes because in school we speak English, so sometimes I felt like I was losing a part of me that kind of all my parents, grandparents, extended family had. And it became hard to communicate with people from my culture.
This is kind of a tangent, but there are, for instance, at my school, in order to try and overcome that factor, again, going back to the bridging gaps, but we have affinity groups or clubs where there's Asian student union, Muslim student union, etc. I was wondering if you guys have any of those, and do you think it does a good job of bringing together sort of these divided or hard to bring together sides of you?
So there wasn't necessarily a club at my school, but I remember back in I'm not sure if it still continues now, but every year we have a multicultural night. So different parents around the school will bring different foods in. So that kind of because I feel food is a important part of everyone's culture. So having everyone bring different things, my dad's from Trinidad, and something we would eat something roti or salt fish and bake. So foods like that, which are different than someone else's, really maybe show people everyone's different, but we were to come together and try everyone's food. So that was where we bridged the gap of everyone.
Sort of branching off of what we mentioned prior, how do you think your culture / race affected you in school, in the more educational atmosphere?
Alienating and during our classroom sessions where I was the only person of color in my class until and I would just be uncomfortable talking the entire time or answering questions and afraid that I would be I'll get them wrong and be sort of judged differently because of my skin color.
Have any of you guys sort of felt that pressure?
I definitely have seen. I go to school in Wellesley, which is like predominantly white, and like all the way up until high school, I was usually the only like person of color in my class. So I definitely felt the same pressures as Dar. Like, will I be looked at differently because like I do something wrong or like I say something weird, like how I'll be treated. So I try to like avoid that, but like I guess trying to like fit in a sort of way.
And what do you think was one of the ways that differentiated like high school from like your previous academic experiences?
A bit less in high school because I feel like in high school there's like a stronger kind of Asian community, and a lot of my friends are also Asian, so that's been nice. But when I was in like sixth grade, I remember there were in my class there was me and I think like two or three other Asians at most, and it just felt like we stood out because everyone else was like white and it was a private school.
How has the racial profile of a city or slash like growing up in a predominantly white town affected your outlook or sort of your self-esteem slash fitting in ability? Um, Malika, do you want to answer that?
Well, growing up in like a mostly like white community and like in a school environment that was predominantly white, it kind of felt really awkward because I was like one of the only people that stood out because I didn't have like straight blonde hair. I have like curly brown hair, and just a lot of people like didn't understand when I tried to tell them that I was different, and it was kind of just really awkward to just be the only different one there.
Yeah, I think also on another note, I feel like beyond just the demographic, I feel like there was this was a very popular debate, but like in society itself, there's a lot of they perpetuate a lot of these like European standards to be like the beauty standard, and all of like the American Girl dolls are mostly they were mostly blonde, or like the ones you see that are highly prized are like blonde, blue eyes, etc. Or like you don't see yourself represented very well because if it's primarily this race, then they fail to really represent the other ones because they're not as educated about it, or they just don't want to explore that. Um, have you guys sort of experienced that, and like how have you combated that?
I don't like live in Wellesley, I live in Boston. So the difference between the two, like I feel like when I'm in Boston, like when I'm around my own neighborhood, I feel like since I see people like of different races all around the world, it definitely helps out with that. Other than just like feeling like I'm the odd one out all the time. So like my home life and school life are different, and I enjoy that because like I can see a difference between the two. Like I feel like comfortable in both situations now as I've grown up. So having the two definitely helped out while at school and at home.
Yeah, so having like the experience of like a more diversified city also being there
Mhm.
in the sense. Yeah, like what about the rest of you guys? Has sort of going into a new area like sort of broaden your insight or like broaden your experience? For instance, if you live in like a very suburban, very like white, primarily white area, and then going out into some other area where it's say New York City and you just have more exposure. Have you guys had any of those experiences, and how has that affected you guys?
There wasn't really much change in like population density or anything. It wasn't like I suddenly moved to the city, but I don't think I noticed a big change because I think that what my parents like to do is they like to clump together with people that look like them. So whenever we move to a new area, their first instinct is to go like, oh, let's seek out the Chinese American households. And so kind of everywhere we go, we always like seek out the nearest Asian household and then boom, instant friends.
It's kind of, again, it's like really awkward because when people like don't understand a religion or like the complications of like the oppression of being like one specific race or one specific religion, it gets really awkward for them to like talk about it because they don't understand and they can't really see things from your perspective because they're like they're privileged, they're privileged and stuff. So, it's kind of awkward to try to like put yourself in someone else's shoes and just understand it, but some people do and some people don't.
So just answering your last question, I think
Mhm.
well, my family and my friends have very different values. But I know that I can always get to my family for like race issues or challenges I'm facing. And so answering this question, I think talking with them, both friends and family, even your school if you're comfortable, would be the best way. It's like sort of convey your feelings of how outside the community you feel.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
kind
go ahead.
of add on to that. Like also expressing your feelings, but also like maybe tell stories or like things that have happened to you to like make them to actually understand better. So like if they're in a situation by like telling them what happened to you, that's also will help them a grasp like how you feel better.
Have you guys undergone like a personal experience of this sort, and like how have you guys overcome it? Because for me, I have like for instance, one of my friend's background was closely tied to like a very large political issue of as of recent, and sort of like hosting a lot of like social issue presentations was able to bring more understanding into the situation, as well as let people not fall into believe in a certain stereotype. So do you guys have a personal story of sorts?
In my school, the Black Student Union, the Black Affinity Group, did this thing during Black History Month where they presented almost every day in assembly different like Black artists, Black musicians, or just culture stuff to sort of get the school aware of everything going on, even like political situations.
These are best guys that, yeah, we also have affinity groups that also do that. Like our Black Student Union did something similar. So I definitely think presentations and communications are key to broadening people's views. Do you guys also have other stories of sorts that are similar to this? If not, we can move on to the next question. But we can move on to the next question.
Uh,
This
oh,
Oh yeah, go ahead.
well, I guess I can. It's not really personal, but like there have been times, in, like maybe like in class or like a tragic event happens where like sometimes that day in class we like usually talk about it and like maybe express how we feel about the certain things. Like maybe most recently like the situation in Russia. I remember like we would talk about like our feelings and how we like feel about them in English class and like it may be English, but we still like had a chat about it, so everyone like get their feelings and like emotions out.
Yeah, I think honestly having something similar to what we're having now, it's not exactly, doesn't have to be like a Socratic seminar, but bouncing off ideas is a great way to understand and learn. So another question is, what are some harmful stereotypes you've encountered about your culture, about who you are, and how should they be combated? So it kind of ties into the previous ones, but it's a bit more niche. Caroline, do you want to answer that one?
Oh, sure. I think that the main stereotype I've encountered, like in regards to Chinese culture, is it appears a lot in media, but it's like Chinese people are all good at math and they all want to like be a doctor or something. And I think I think first it's wrong because it's like it's not just math that's important. Like Chinese literature and China has a 2000-year history, and this is all like important to the culture as well as getting a good education as well as math. And second, it just feels like a lot of pressure. Like sometimes I'll do well on a test and I'll show it to my parents and they'll be like, "Yeah, of course, you're Asian." But it's not. I spent like hours studying and sometimes I don't even do that well. I've gotten like 70s on math tests pretty recently. And I think to combat it, it would be, of course, having like discussions like this is definitely helpful. But also, I think it's important to see other people as like people and more than just like a TV show caricature or something.
Yeah, I agree, especially with what you said about how like the stereotypes don't just have to emerge from like someone non-familial or like a friend. It can also come from like your own family, because when the environment starts to heavily encourage these stereotypes, it bleeds into like generations and like families as well, and that just makes the whole situation even worse. Um, Dar, Malika, Shandu, do you guys have any comments on this?
Some of the stereotypes that I've found in like generally like Islamic or Arab people is that like a lot of them are like terrorists. And I think it's really dumb because like most of the Arab people that I meet in like meetings and like religious gatherings, they're all like pretty nice. They give basic respect and you either earn their respect or lose it, like any other person. And they just treat you like a human, and I don't really understand why. And just even then, I've also experienced like stereotypes in like school and stuff, like in my old middle school. It was like a bit weird to like listen to in public and not like online on the internet, but it kind of just it feels weird and like unreliable, very.
Mm-hmm.
It is sort of I don't know, like physical capabilities. Like I do track and field, right? And so this past season, our best runners are like all black and stuff. And I've noticed some comments saying, "Oh, it's either genetics, they're black." So it's something like, of course they're faster, of course they're strong on this event. And I've just been really shocked to like hear that like outright.
Yeah. When they publicize like opinions that are very stereotypical and they're just like they think that they're like complimenting you, I think is especially like so toxic because they spin it in a way that seems like they're congratulating you on something, but it really just it's like the exact opposite.
Especially when most of them are seniors too. They've worked hard for that for
Yeah.
years. I don't know.
Yeah, like devalidating, like, oh, because you're born with it, or like, oh, you're so smart because you're associated with that and that, or like, oh, you're skilled in this facet because of your racial background. I think that's extremely devalidating. No one, please, no one ever use that as like a compliment because, like what Dar said, it undermines you, and it feels like all the only reason you got these achievements is because of this, and it's not even something that like you worked up to. So yeah. And then how do you have you guys ever been treated poorly? We've really talked about this, but because of your ethnicity, race, or beliefs, and if so, in what ways? So if you guys have like more specific examples or just like additional comments on that.
Yeah, so in school, like I was like think nothing that maybe like most recently or like stay in my mind, but like there definitely is usually a comment or based on like how I look, maybe I'll get compared to like maybe like a rapper or something. Someone would compare me just for that and like say like I am just like them. Occasional comments like that usually just like aren't needed, but like, you know, maybe they think like it's funny or something, but never like really comes off that way.
In middle school, I have had a few experiences where people have like made fun of me for my like ethnicity and stuff. And like it's weird because they think it's funny. Like they put a spin on it and they make it a joke. And everyone who like isn't part of the group that they're trying to make the joke out of is just like laughing. And you're like, why are you laughing? That's horrible. And it's kind of just weird to listen to.
Definitely communication's key with that. I feel like having discussions such as like this are like very helpful because I feel like when people are like balling up maybe emotions like that, they tend to then like not know how to deal with it. But like letting it out easily to someone who else may understand, I feel like definitely is helpful for many people.
Yeah. Do you guys have any like organizations in your community that is specifically targeted towards this? Because I know like more now than ever, like a lot of teenagers are spearheading or like college students are spearheading like nonprofits, organizations, kind of like GYP actually, um, that are focused on dismantling these really bad misunderstandings. So like do you guys have any local organizations or communities, or are you guys part of one, for instance, that you think has really made a difference? Um,
There are definitely much smaller, like in school, there are like things such as like the STARS program where it's trying to, but those clubs usually aren't as successful as many others because like the lack of like care I feel like people have for them. So they end up like just going like misused and like aren't like projected out to many people. So I feel like they end up being useless in such a way.
Mm. Could you elaborate on sort of like the stuff they do and how like people might not be paying the most attention to it?
Well, I forget the exact like definition of what stars means. I remember like
Yeah.
I remember like everyone like basically so there was a teacher who was running it and he wanted people from like anywhere, any like background, like race, gender to like come together and like share because maybe like they haven't had similar experiences, but still like someone talking about like the things they've gone through was very helpful. But I feel like since the majority, since I go to a predominantly white school, most people haven't gone through many of these, so like there was no need for them to really join these. And I feel like that was a problem with like having clubs like that.
Well, there's a club called Asian Students in Action, and every year on like a Friday night, they'll host like this 3-hour show that's kind of a display of many like Asian cultures. And they'll give speeches, they'll do like dances and perform like traditional songs. And I've gone like 2 or 3 times so far, and it's always just such a great experience because it's one of the biggest events that the school hosts, and it's completely student led, and everyone just comes together, and you can see like all the teachers standing by the sidelines, like watching, making sure that everything goes smoothly. And I think that like definitely helps a lot, at least within our school.
Yeah. Could you elaborate on some of the ways that you think it's like brought changes? Caroline?
Oh, uh, I think that I think that it's brought like kind of more exposure to different cultures, and first it's a way of tying the community together of people of like all different cultures, not just those within the Asian community. Like there's a bunch, like although all the performances are centered around Asian culture, like the audience isn't. And it's a way to bring people together and to share what we're proud of in our own cultures.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's something that I'll have to propose to my school as well because I think that's a really good idea. So sort of transitioning away from kind of what we've been talking about for like the first half. Did you guys grow up in a bilingual or having a family who spoke a different language? And if so, how has this affected your life or kind of changed how you grew up and how you learned, etc.? Um, Dar or Malika, do you guys have any comments on this?
My first language is actually like Persian, and like growing up, like speaking mostly Persian in my house because most of my family couldn't understand English. It kind of like because most of my family couldn't speak English, it kind of like forcefully kept me attached to Persian. I had to know it to be able to communicate with my family. But like in school, in middle school, when I went to Catholic school, one of my most vivid memories of third grade is the teacher asking me how to say hello and how are you in Persian, and then the class just like repeating it back like they're all like parrots or something. And it kind of sounded a bit weird because they don't have like the accent, but they were like trying. You could tell that they were trying to replicate it, and it was kind of wholesome in a way.
And like Malika, Chinese is my first language, but since I moved to America when I was like 3 years old, so the Chinese has like slowly disappeared, and it's my English is definitely much better. So in a way, I've always been really scared of losing what I've always seen as the last connection to my family and who I am. And in school, I take Chinese class in just kind of like this way to reconnect. And it's and kind of like Malika's experience where I see like not, of course there's Chinese kids in my class, but there's also some like American kids, there's white people, and hearing them try their best to pronounce like the vocab words and kind of missing the accent, it's kind of heartening to see that they're making a genuine effort, and over the course of the year I can like hear their accent improve. But deep down, I think I might also have like an American accent in Chinese. So that's why I've been taking classes, because I'm just really worried that one day my grandparents won't be able to understand me.
I definitely have an American accent when I speak Chinese, so you are not alone in that. But yeah, I completely agree about sort of like having language as one of the most prominent ties to like the generations above you. Um, Especially with like a lot of like immigrant families, like my parents are immigrants. So there's a very stark difference in like where they once were and where we are now, and like the language barrier and all that. But really quickly, Dar and Shandu, did you guys have any experiences similar to that?
I kind of,
Oh, sorry. You can go.
I kind of grew up in a bilingual household. My family speaks Haitian Creole, but they also speak English since they moved here. So wasn't really forced to learn my other language because like I communicated in either way. And so I kind of eventually lost as I grew up. And even now, my family says, "Why aren't you speaking Haitian or Creole?" And so it's a bit of a downer, not gonna lie.
Mm,
But I've gotten used to it. I'm actually after my mom to like speak more Creole to me to sort of get used to the language and start speaking it myself.
yeah. Shandu?
Uh, my family, like so my dad's from Trinidad, and it's not necessarily different language, but a different dialect. So like they like pronounce a certain word differently. So definitely like I can tell the difference whenever I'm around like people on my father's side, like certain words like I've like gotten better since I've like been around them more of understanding certain words. But then occasionally like if my grandfather were to say a word, I can sometimes like not understand him. I have to like listen to him, like have him repeat it because sometimes it's a bit difficult for me to understand him. So I definitely have tried to get better with that necessarily. Yeah.
Wow, it was really interesting learning about like everyone's experiences. But yeah, I wanted to sort of circle back to what Caroline also mentioned earlier about having language as one of the primary ties to like your family. So like how do you think um language has been a tool for you guys? Like my Chinese is not the best. Like my brother went to China for like a few years, so his is much better, but mine is like extremely rusty. But it's like the only way I can communicate to a lot of relatives. Um, so how do you think language as a tool has sort of like solidified bonds, but also like sort of losing a language has led to different ways to like unite that bond in a sense? Shandu, do you want to go?
For me, since like it still is English, it isn't as much as like a difficulty. Sadly, I remember like experiencing it in a hard way because me personally, I don't really use that dialect, so it's never like in my like life, but I can understand it. So if someone says something to me, like I won't like have a blank face, but I don't think ever like it doesn't really affect my day-to-day life that much.
Yeah, got it. Um, Caroline, do you have any comments on this?
I think it does hurt a little bit when some of my relatives tell me that my Chinese is bad, or when I just notice that there's a blank in a Chinese word that I forgot. But I think that the process of me having to relearn Chinese has brought me closer together with some of my family, because my grandpa teaches me Chinese like once a week. We set up a meeting and I just read from a Chinese book to him. And with my parents, they've been trying to get me to learn Chinese by forcing me to watch these like Chinese dramas. And recently we've been watching one called Word of Honor, or Shangheliang. I don't know if anyone's heard of it. And that's been like pretty fun, although I still read the English subtitles. I hope that I'm getting better.
I think you definitely are. At least more than me. I have to watch dramas too. Um, Dar, I think you mentioned something similar. Do you have any comments on this?
Yeah, like sort of like Caroline said, it kind of hurts when they mention, "Oh, you're not as good at this language," or "You can't really understand what we're saying in this conversation." So now I kind of rely on context, like their emotion they use, or tone, and just the situation we're in. I've gone by somewhat decently.
Mm, do you think like I know like perhaps language is a barrier, or I think you're fine with like facial and tone and all that. But like, how do you think, what are other ways that you've sort of united those family connections, despite having sort of like this obstacle?
I usually have my mom the translator for me. Like,
Mm,
for example, my dad, he doesn't really speak English at all. He speaks entirely Haitian. And so my mom's always on the phone with us as well, like sort of translate between the two of us talking.
do you think so yeah, do any of other guys sort of have to like, perhaps like language is sort of an obstacle? Like what are the ways that you guys sort of balance that out with other forms of connections or activities? Malika or Caroline, maybe?
It's not necessarily like a language obstacle, but since I like can't really spell Persian very well, because I never like properly learned it, I just picked it up from my parents. I can't really spell very well, so I just write like the pronunciation of the words, but in English letters, because I can speak it much better than I can write and spell. So I just use English letters and write out the pronunciations, and usually my family can generally understand what I'm trying to say with that.
Got it. And sort of tying into that, to the whole bilingual growing up situation, do you guys ever code switch, aka like you jump from like language to language, like alternate from language to language when you're speaking? And when do you feel the need to do so? And like what does that serve for you as like an outlet or etc.? Um
Uh,
uh,
I can start it off. Definitely at school, I feel like I code switch basically like I wouldn't say every day because I feel like maybe I wouldn't like say like a certain phrase. I'll feel more comfortable around like using around someone like of my culture or something like that. I feel like that is like the main thing I do when I'm at school. I try to like maybe use words that are more like I'm not sure how to say, but like maybe like more like I don't say maybe acceptable,
or
maybe.
mild?
Yeah,
Yeah.
to someone at my school. That's like definitely something I make sure I do at my school.
Yeah. Caroline or Dart, do you guys have similar like code switching outlets, for instance?
I don't really switch in languages, but I do like switch what kind of slang I use, sort of like John just said.
Oh yeah, yeah. Do you want to elaborate on that a little? Sorry, I totally lumped like code switch onto just language, but feel free to bonnet to like everything else.
Sort of like my school's predominantly white, so I wouldn't really talk the same way I talk to white people, the same way I talk to my friends. Like
Mm,
just yeah, slang.
yeah, yeah. No, I agree. Um, do the rest of you guys have any sort of like code switching experiences? Caroline, maybe? Malika?
In terms of language, surprisingly not really because like my Chinese is really bad. So I think that I've just grown up speaking English and it just like the Chinese part just slowly like disappeared like when I'm at school. In terms of like other aspects, like yeah, a little bit. Like I just won't talk about like when I'm with my Chinese friends, sometimes we'll speak in Chinese. We'll discuss like Chinese. Well, like I have one friend and when we do something that the other approves of, we'll say 我爱你, which translates to I love you. And I don't do that with anyone else.
Yeah, I agree. I'm gonna adopt that. Malika, do you have any similar experiences?
Yeah, usually when I like don't know like a Persian word, but like I know what I'm trying to say in English, but I don't know like the Persian equivalent of like a word. Usually I'll ask my mom, and if she doesn't understand me because she's not the best with English, usually I'll just replace the word with the English word in the sentence, and it sounds really awkward. And also sometimes I'll like switch the wrong way, and I'll start speaking like Persian in an American accent, and it sounds really weird.
Um, Tell me about some of like the traditions, celebrations, or rituals your families where you individually participate in or engage in? Caroline, do you want to start that off?
Sure. My family participates in 3 main Chinese holidays. The first being Chinese New Year, which is also called 春节. And how we celebrate this is we basically watch 春节晚会, which translates to English as, I believe it's like the summer festival, not summer, spring festival like gala. And we watch it from my dad's like low quality YouTube on his computer, and it's like glitchy and the frame rate is really bad. But we watch it as a family, and then we just eat. And also sometimes we'll invite like other nearby Chinese families over, and the adults will just talk about like housing prices and stuff. And then the children will just like wreak havoc in the basement. We also celebrate the Mid-Autumn Festival where we eat mooncake. And I think a way that my parents have adjusted to living in America and coming from China is they've been placing a lot of emphasis on connecting with other Chinese families. So during the Mid-Autumn Festival, we drive around to every Chinese family we're friends with in like a 50-mile radius, and they just drop off boxes of yuebing or mooncake. Of course, like during holidays, we eat like traditional dumplings, and sometimes we get like takeout from the local Chinese grocery store. Like in Quincy, there's a store called Cayman, and we get food from there. Aside from that, honestly, it's like pretty boring. It's like I know when I call my relatives in China, they're always doing wild things like setting off fireworks and watching like lion dances, and we're sitting with our little YouTube screen and just eating like frozen dumplings.
Yep. That sounds like what I do too. Shandu, do you want to talk about some of the traditions, celebrations?
So one of the celebrations that me and my family celebrate is it's every year in August, so it's actually coming up pretty soon. Something called Carnival. So it's basically where like different islands like the Caribbean all basically come together and have like this massive parade, and like people would like bring homemade costumes or like different things like in the shapes of like birds or like dragons, like different creatures basically that like represent where they're from. And then they would have like this massive parade walking down the streets of Boston, and then like towards the end, like they meet. I'm not sure what the park is called, but like they meet in the park and like they actually rated because while they're going, they're on like these huge trucks, like blasting music from like where they're from, and basically it's like a competition. So it's a lot of fun. So me and my family usually like are like in the crowd watching them go by, and it's usually like a lot of fun. So like I really enjoy it. Like that's like very fun.
Family does is each New Year we drink soup jungle, just this random soup full of different herbs and meat that is special to us.
Yeah, and Malika?
A lot of like the stuff that my parents celebrate and stuff is just part of like like regular Islamic holidays and stuff. Like Eid al-Fitr, which is the ending of Ramadan, like the end of like a month of fasting where it's just like a really happy day. You've made it. Congratulations. And also there's the Persian New Year, which is called Nowruz, and you have to like set up like a table with the Sofeh Hafsin, which is translates to like the table of the 7 S's basically, and you put like a bunch of stuff on it that in Persian starts with the letter S, or like the pronunciation of the letter S, and you put like a bowl of goldfish too. And it's always really funny when the goldfish jump out of the bowl.
That's very cool. And in addition, it was really nice hearing all about your stories. And kind of like branching off of that, how do you feel like some of these events help you cope with like anxiety, stress, sadness, or like other troubles? Is it like sort of a coping outlet, for instance, or what do these sort of what do these sort of like help you cope with, if they do, for instance?
I wouldn't say like helps me cope, but like it is like a reminder that like I'm not like the only one. Basically, it's like like when I I feel like I'm different than other people, but it like reminds me that like people are just like you, celebrating the same things you do, or like at the same way you do. So it's like helpful to like keep me like feel better basically about myself.
Caroline?
As I think it, yeah, similar, yeah, I probably like a similar experience. Like also helps me like see people who are similar to me and connect with my family more. And I think that in general, like my culture probably causes a bit more stress than like to be honest, because there's like a lot to there's I have to worry about learning the language, etc. But an aspect of my culture that always keeps me grounded and helps with like anxiety is I practice martial arts and I learn like traditional kind of Chinese martial arts and I do this once a week and it just gives my life structure. It like helps a lot with just it gives me something to do, it gives me something to look forward to. And I think that's probably helps me the most.
Yeah, I think also kind of tying into both what you guys have said, it's just like such a nice moment to be able to like revel in the moment with other people who celebrate the same things as you, and just being able to see like, oh, I'm not the only one who's like over exhilarated, but like there's other people who are also embracing, and they're right here with me, and there's like this one activity or this one thing that brings us together that we might have never been brought together elsewise. And I think that's like one of the like most beautiful things about culture, even though society likes to use it as like a very separative factor.
Me, like similarly to Caroline, it's also sometimes a bit more stressful than like anxiety reducing because my parents are like perfectionists and they want everything to be perfect and they'll have a meltdown asking me like, where's this? Where's this? Go put on a nice dress and stuff like that. And it's kind of frustrating. But when it's not like that, it's kind of just fun to just hang out and do stuff. Well, like as you know, Christians celebrate Christmas. I'm pretty sure everyone knows what that is. Um, and my family is Islamic, so as a kid growing up in like a Christian school, I was like, why don't we celebrate Christmas? And my parents were like, oh, because we're not Christians. And I wouldn't understand it because I didn't completely understand the concept of other religions other than Islam, because it was what I grew up with. And it was kind of just weird because everyone else was off having like Christmas break, Thanksgiving break, and I don't even know what half these holidays are for. My parents don't celebrate it. It's just 4 days off that you just go to New Hampshire and do stuff. And it was kind of awkward when everyone else comes back from Christmas break. Oh, what did you get for Christmas? And I just have to stand there and be like, I didn't get anything. It's kind of weird.
Yeah. Um, do you think like sort of maintaining like your spiritual or religious beliefs, like how do they impact you, or how are they important to you, despite like knowing that I know like schools universally like pretty much follow that Christmas, Thanksgiving, like Easter, St. Patrick's whole ordeal. So yeah, how do you keep these things like important to you, and like what do they act as, despite saying like the majority don't do it in your community?
It's kind of like it's more of like a whenever um an Islamic holiday comes up, my parents have to like call up the school, be like, there's a holiday coming up, like I won't be coming to school this day or like this few days. And it's a bit weird when I come back and everyone's like, where were you? And I have to explain the entire holiday to them. But everyone else is just like, oh wow, we wish we had this random day break that you had. And it's kind of weird to hear them say that because like to like celebrate that holiday, you have to like know the history behind it, you have to know the traditions. And it's not just like a 1 day break. It's like you have to do all this stuff today. You have to take a shower, you have to go outside, you have to pray, you have to do a bunch of stuff. And it's not just a day off, it's just a day of doing religious stuff.
Mm. Um, Shandu, Caroline, Dart, what would similarly, how have like if you have any spiritual or religious beliefs, how have they impacted your day-to-day life, and how are they important to you and your family?
For feel for me, my family necessarily isn't very religious, but like at school, it's like very like interesting because I have friends who like are from different backgrounds. So like it's like it's like cool to hear like how they differ, I guess. But like and they won't like don't necessarily like impact my life, but like it's nice to hear like the difference between them.
Caroline or Dar?
My family's not really religious at all, so I guess I've never had that much exposure to religion, but I've gone to a Catholic school. I've gone to a Catholic school like twice in my life, and it just feels like I'm an outsider, just watching other people do things and not really being able to have a similar experience in my own home.
Dar, would you say you have any spiritual slash religious beliefs that have influenced you?
I'm not really religious.
I mean, I'm not very religious either. But yeah, I think what Carolyn brought up about how seeing how something that's very deeply integrated into someone else's life that maybe like is scarcely integrated into your own life is very it was very shocking initially because I definitely grew up in a place where I didn't realize that like, oh, people they went to the church on like Sunday, for instance, if they were like Christian or Catholic or whatever day they go. So yeah. And does anyone have any like final thoughts? We can go around and just like say a few things, perhaps. Dara, do you want to start us off? Sort of as like a wrapping up.
Um, I just think it was a fun time, a good time having being here and talking with everyone about different culture situations we've all been in and understanding each other.
Just go to the line on my screen. Caroline?
Yeah, like similar to Dar, I really appreciate kind of all of us being here, and I think it's really important for people to understand each other. So I really enjoyed this experience.
As did I. Malika?
I think it was like nice to see other people's perspectives and know that you're not like the only person that's different and seen as different by a predominantly white country.
Shandu?
Yeah, I don't want to repeat everyone else, but like basically the same thing. It was like nice to hear like different people's like lives and like so I can like basically compare them to mine and be like how everyone's different, which is nice to hear.
Yeah, I like what Shandu said. I won't repeat everyone, but generally it was really awesome like meeting you guys and hearing how like background can intersect so many factors and produce so many like unique lives. Just and how like we might be in similar communities, but we are all very different people and how that shapes us in a way.